right, everyone, and just want to do a quick recap of this past Wednesday's lesson with you in our part 2 of our series called Unstoppable. Just already so excited about this series and what God is teaching us through it. And so the past Wednesday, the first part, we looked at the obstacles of nothingness and reconciliation and how God overcame those obstacles and worked his plan even through those obstacles. And so this week we looked at the flood and the wickedness of man and how not even these things could stop God from fulfilling his plan. And in fact, we actually learned that God used those things and even brought the flood to make his plan progress and work. And so there were 4 really quick points that we walked through together that I want to share with you right now. The first is that we got to understand, first of all, that God is grieved by sin. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 to 7 and 11, God expresses his deep, deep hurt and grief by the wickedness of man on the earth at that time. And we talked about how all sin is offensive to God and an affront to God and who he is, because he's perfect and he's holy, and any sin, not just the big stuff that we like murder and abuse and rape and all of these kind of things that are like the big, like Holocaust, those are evil things that no one should ever commit, and those are wrong. Yes, those are offensive to God. We agree with that. And certainly those sins are different in the consequences and the effects of those. We feel more deeply and are more significant. But all sin, the little white lie, the stealing of something small, or whatever that might be, all sin is evil to God and offensive to him. And so we learned really early on in Genesis, in this story, that God is grieved to his core with the sin of mankind. And the Bible uses such strong language as he regretted that he made man, and he's going to wipe them out and blot them out because they were so wicked and so evil. And so that was the first point that we need to understand in this these 2 obstacles that we're looking at this week. The second thing we need to understand is that God will punish sin. He is a just and holy God. He cannot let sin stand. Use the example of parents. If a parent has a child that does something wrong, like my parents had a child that does something wrong and does not punish them or discipline them, then they're not a very good parent. So if we rightly understand that sin is offensive, sin is evil, all of it, not just the bad stuff, but all of it is offensive to God, then we understand that God is a good father when in Genesis chapter 6:17 he says he's going to bring a flood and wipe out mankind. People use this kind of stuff to say, see, the God of the Old Testament is this mean, nasty, evil ogre who's just slaughtering people left and right. Well, when you, again, understand the evil of sin, the wickedness of sin, it actually becomes kind of absurd that God would rescue anyone, as we're going to see, at all in the ark, right? Or any animals for that matter. And so, understanding, first of all, that sin is offensive, sin is evil, God despises it, it grieves him to his core. You need to understand that him being a good father, a good creator, a good ruler, good judge, is going to punish the sin and wickedness of mankind. But then there's the good news. And this is where God works, and he's unstoppable despite the obstacles that we face. And that's Genesis 6:18, where he makes a covenant with Noah and says, I'll protect you and your family. I won't destroy you. I won't destroy your family and the animals that come on the ark. And this is the good news. God always makes a way out from under our sin and the just punishment that we deserve in it. And you better believe that if anyone would have seen the ark as Noah was building it, it took about 100 years. If anyone would have seen that and said, oh, okay, I believe, I repent, and turned from their sins, helped them build the boat, and they would have gotten the boat, they would have been saved. And what we need to understand then is that the ark is a picture of what's to come. In Genesis chapter 3, God mentions the seed of the woman that's going to crush the head of the serpent. we now see God making a way out from the just punishment. The only reason that Noah and his family were saved because of his belief in God, and that was counted as righteousness for him. He was found righteous in the sight of God, and that's the only reason. It wasn't because he was so much more special than anyone else. It's because he believed in God and he followed God, as we are commanded to do. And so there's always a way out, and God has made a way out through the cross of Christ. He's said there's an open door in the ark. Come into the ark. Avoid the punishment, the just punishment that you deserve. And so through the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, we have an ark. We have salvation. We have redemption. And so we learn that not only does God bring about the punishment, like he brought the flood. It wasn't like an accident. It wasn't like, oh, the flood's going to happen, so I'm just going to happen to use that. It was he sent the waters. He sent the fountains bursting forth from the deep and the floodgates opening from heaven. He's the one who sent that. So just as he enacts the punishment, he also makes a way out from underneath it. This is the good news of the gospel that we hold for people. And then there's one last final piece that we need to understand. In Genesis chapter 7:23, we see that the flood happens, and also Noah and his family, all the animals on the ark are saved. Because God always keeps his promises. He promises that he's going to punish sin, and he does it. He promises that he's going to provide salvation, and he does it. There is no one beyond the salvation of God. Right? And so what we did was we made a really practical application of this. If there's that friend or that family member or that person that you know that does not know Jesus, maybe you've talked to them about the gospel, or maybe they've heard the gospel so many times, or they're just like really bad people and it seems like there's no way that they could ever be saved. We need to understand that just as the flood was actually the means that God uses and could not stop him, and the wickedness of man could not stop his plan, so neither is it impossible for anyone to be saved. From the most vile among us, God can save. The cross can save. There's nothing greater than the grace that is offered to us in the free gift on the cross of Jesus Christ. And so we challenged ourselves. Think of who are the 2 or 3 people in your life that don't know Jesus. Write their names down, put it up somewhere, begin praying for them, and then begin in earnest building a relationship with them in order to share the gospel with them. And not just to convert them, right? People aren't just projects, but to honestly and earnestly, lovingly walk alongside them in life and show them Christ through your words and your deeds. Because we know that there's no one beyond salvation, because our God is unstoppable. So that was kind of the lesson that we talked about. We also, this last Wednesday, and you'll get this in an email, more information, discovered who our global partners were going to be. Like, we want to see what God's doing around the world, how he's working around the world. And so we introduced the Harrisons. The Harrisons were actually able to zoom into us and talk about their ministry and what God is going to have them doing and the work that they're going to be doing among refugees. And so we're excited about that. Look for details in the email to come. I sent home a paper with your teens. They should have given it to you. You should have seen it as well. If not, ask them about it. Find that. But we're excited about all that God is doing and how he is really unstoppable and how he is working not just here in Lancaster, but around the entire